Welcome to episode 7 of The View with Vertex. I'm your host, Isaac Morrison, and today's guest is someone we've been meaning to get on the show since we started. Ian Corfield is something of a local legend. His career spans from 6 decades in the industry. To call him an advanced scaffolder probably does him a disservice, as his career in the industry predates the qualification itself and even the Health and Safety at Work Act. Without further ado, Ian.
Thanks for asking me to come on.
Good to have you here, mate. So again, Ian's had to have the pleasure of watching me mumble and stumble through a couple of failed intros. This is take 2, isn't it, Ian?
It is, yes.
So just for a bit of context, last night we came to the studio, got all the recording equipment set up. Ian came in, he's brought loads of sort of books and relics and a bit of a history lesson in scaffolding, and you've got to chatting as we always do, and really, really good conversation. Enjoyed everything that you were talking about, Ian. It was like, I thought, yes, the listeners are really going to enjoy all of this stuff. And then we get the episode on and then realised that this mic hadn't been switched on, and we'd only heard Ian's part in the show, which, to be fair, that was the interesting bit. I was just sort of getting the prompting the responses. However, we are going to do a take 2. We're going to start again from the beginning. I'm going to be just as interested as I was last night in the answers to the questions. You're just going to have to pretend you're interested in the questions themselves. So, kind of as we always do, take it back to sort of, I was going to say the start in the industry, but just before that, so you left school in the 60s?
Late 60s, about 69, 70.
Yeah. And that was it. It was a technical school, you were saying, it was like an all boys.
Yeah, you passed your 11 plus, which was, coming from Salford was a big thing. Your parents had to lash out a load of money for you to go to a grammar or a technical school, because you had to have a uniform and football boots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pumps, woodwork apron. You had to have so many shirts. I mean, Wife's brother passed his 11 plus and couldn't go. They just couldn't afford to send him.
Right.
Yeah, it cost a lot.
So nothing like it is nowadays. It's just like now you get your local secondary school.
Yeah, well, you went to an ordinary secondary modern, which is now a comprehensive, and you didn't have to wear a uniform. You just turned up. Well, like you had some football boots, shorts, gym kit, loads of stuff. You know what I mean? And it cost, the uniforms cost a lot of money. Cap, you just wear a cap. And,
short pants?
No, they didn't have short pants. No, that.
I've got this image in my head.
No, but a lot of people struggle. I mean, I knew kids at school, and you had a grey shirt, and when the collar worn on the shirt, the mum would unpick the collar, turn it round, and sew it back on. Couldn't afford a new shirt.
Yeah,
so that's how it was. You know what I mean? Like primary school, you was posh. You get all in your shoe. If you was poor, you put a bit of cardboard in it. If you wasn't, you had a bit of liner in the bottom of your shoe, and that's how it was. Loads of kids were like that.
It's, the youth of today, I know, obviously gets brought up a lot, doesn't it? They really don't realise how good they got it.
Trainers didn't exist. I mean, you had a pair of pumps. They used to whiten. You used to have pumps whitened for the gym.
Yeah,
put whitening on your pumps.
I mean, even when I was at school, I remember my mum obviously going back to her childhood. She said my nana was a bit of a rebel and all the rest of it. She kept my mum off school for months because they wouldn't pay for, the council wouldn't pay for shoes for her. She's like, well, I can't afford them. She's like, well, we're not paying. Well, she's not going to school then. But I can imagine that was probably the story for a lot of people. It just wasn't, valued in the same way that it is today. But I guess the other side of that is the people who did see the value in it. Like you say, you make do what you've got.
Yeah.
In order to get an education. So the actual qualifications themselves, when you left or during school.
Well, you did. If you did a GCE. Anybody at a secondary modern school left at 15. They didn't got a school leaving certificate, and that was it. So you stayed on the next year, which was 5th form.
And from 15, it was straight to work.
Oh yeah, straight to work. You stayed if you went to a grammar or technical school. You stayed next year and got your O levels.
So what is similar to what would now be like a 6th form order?
Well, the 6th forms, you 2 years after. That's after the 5th. You do 2 years. That's like they have a 6th form college now. So you do 2 years for your A levels.
Right. So effectively, you could have left in 4th year.
Yeah, the end of 4th year.
Right.
Yeah, the end of 4th year.
Or 5th year was like
an
extra.
Yeah. So they raised the school leaving age to 16. So then they said, oh well, everybody can take these GCEs. And they went, no, they can't. Well, they can take them, but they're not going to pass them because they're set for an higher level.
Yeah.
It's not being elitist. That's how they were set. So they brought in the CSE, which is the General Certificate of Secondary Education. And that was set, the bar was set lower. So if you got one of them, a passing one of those was so a grade 1 CSE was equivalent to an O-level pass.
Right.
And then when they abolished the grammar schools, they merged both exams to call it the GCSE, which is a General Certificate.
Yeah, which is what I would have taken probably, Paul.
Yeah, GCSE, yeah. So that's how they did it, yeah. But, I mean, the school I went to was, say, we moved to a new school after 1 year. We was in the Victorian one. It was brand new. It was swimming baths. Had what they call a language laboratory, which they had like 30 odd booths with tape recorders, and you'd have headphones on and you'd speak, they'd have tape record and do the languages.
See, that seems like really sort of forward thinking, doesn't it?
It didn't do me any good. I got a grade 5 CSE in French, which you get that for spelling your name right. You know what I mean? And they had like, they had an art room with pottery, they had full gym, obviously. They had 2 wood workshops with a machine shop in between. Nobody's allowed in that machine shop. Fingers get chopped off on the machines. You know
I can imagine when you described it yesterday. Yeah. It was like, this sounds like a proper factory. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they had a metal workshop. So the metal work, you did like sheet metal work, and they had a blacksmith's half. And then the engineering workshop had 30 lathes in it, plus milling machines, welding sets, shapers.
You'd be lucky to get a construction site or
two blacksmith's hearths and a gas air thing for doing brazing.
You really do. There's no like simulation there, is you proper doing the job?
Yeah. I mean, but the thing goes, you're on a lathe. If you didn't give you glasses and all, you was turning on a lathe. You know what I mean? 14 years old, you was on a lathe.
Yeah, I've seen some of the haircuts around back in the day as well. That was a few sort of heads pulled into them.
Yeah, no. I mean, they had a drawing office. The drawing office facing. I mean, like obviously it's all CAD now, but they had 2 big Admiral drafting machines and drawing. You know, I did tech drawing for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah,
so all the way through.
All the way through. I did. Well, it's only 1 lesson a week. Don't get me wrong, but
you're still losing out.
Yeah, you still
got a rule, and
you got the O level, and when you did the A level. I mean, say there's no caddies doing dead complicated. We spent 2 lessons learning how to draw a nut and a nut, and a bolt head. And then
it's mad, isn't it? You know, when you think about, like you say, CAD and like BIMs and all this kind of stuff. But it's just a case, it's there already. I mean, I know I use a lot of tools, not for that side of things, but like for designing documents and things like that. And you've got like Canva and Photoshop and stuff like that. There's so many things that you can just click on something and the picture of it's there.
But the part of the engineering drawing at A level, a lot of it was structural engineering. So they'd give you roof trusses and they'd give you the loadings on top, and then you'd have to work out what each member was in tension or compression and what the loading was in each one of them. That's what stood me in really good stead for scaffolding. Really,
I was going to say, at what do you think it was that sparked your interest in scaffold? Do you think it was the technical aspect of going to a technical secondary school? No, because
I did a business studies course first. I did what we call a sandwich course. So I did 6 months HND, which is High National Diploma, which is equivalent to a degree.
Right.
So at Stockport College.
In business?
Yeah, business studies. Right. Yeah, so I mean, like I was doing, it was a brilliant course. Absolutely did statistics, economics, ordinary accounts, management. I found management accounts fascinating. That's how you do all the internal part of the business, whether it's making a profit, and how you can spot where things are going wrong. Law, that was fascinating. Statistics, organisation and methods, which is designing forms and what colours to put on when you're designing the form and the size of the form. I look at forms and I think, why is there only a little space there for you to sign your name? There's not enough room. Who's designed this? Do you know
it's weird, isn't it? Because I'm like with forms and documents and all the rest of it. Because obviously a lot of my job now is like writing risk assessments, method statements, safety policies, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of consultants or a lot of people get bogged down on like the details. You want to make sure that don't get me wrong, because you've studied a bit of law yourself, so you know that like the wording has to be right, the content has to be right, because ultimately that could be what's getting read out in court. However, for me, the visual of the document is almost as important, because it might say the right stuff, but if the person reading it doesn't want to read it because it looks, and like you say, just the smallest thing of the lines being out.
We did a job once and it comes to us. Did contract law. There's 6 things you need for a contract. It's got for an acceptance, and there's got to be consideration, which means you've got to pay somebody. So we priced this job, and we went, we're paying you too much. We don't want to pay you less. So we weren't happy with what we got anyway. So I said, well, if you want to renegotiate, we're going to have to null and void this contract first on a mutual basis. So, all right then. You didn't see the trap I was setting him, so null and voided the contract.
Just because of the way you tell the story, I kind of thought there's a trap here, but that's only because of the way.
So I said, we're already committed to this. I said, so we can mutually dissolve this contract and we can renegotiate it. He went, yeah, I'm happy with that. So we agreed we mutually dissolved the contract, and for saying sake, we had $1,000 in for it. And he said, well, we don't want to pay you $750. I want $2,000. He went, what? I want $2,000 to do it. He went, well, I want a reduction. Well, that contract's gone, you know. He says, well, it's gone. We've dissolved it. We're renegotiating. He says, well, I thought we was going to renegotiate lower. And no, we're renegotiating. I said, it's either $2,000 or I walk away. And I just got them walked out. Now he could do. He dissolved the contract. The older one didn't stand. So, you know.
Do you remember at Bottom?
Yeah.
Eddie's gone into the shop and he's got this old antique leg that he's just robbed off a local piss head. He's like took it off his leg, took it into the bucket. He's gone like that. He goes, oh, he goes, that's a nice, the fellow in the pawn shop, he goes, oh, that's a nice bit of wood there. He said, probably worth at least $2,000. He said, give you £4.50 for it. So he goes, let's haggle. He goes, all right, and £1. He goes, no, let's haggle upwards. But that's the thing, innit? You think, I've dissolved the contract now, we can haggle.
Yeah.
It's, I wonder how much that'd be, would stand now. Do you know what I mean? In today's contract law, because everything is.
There's six things still standing in the contracts.
But there is actually a couple of guys coming on from Holmes and Hill Solicitors.
Well, I'll tell you about. Yeah, there's 6 essential things for the contract. So, did the 6 months at college, and then I went to this engineering firm for 6 months. I was in the office, and they just set up the EITB, and I had to do a job description of all the white collar staff, the engineering staff. That was somebody else was doing that. Anyway, did all that. Got back to college, and funny, when I got back, more or less every lecturer was saying, they say, what's the most important thing when you've got a job? And everybody went, long holidays, loads of money. And he went, no, everybody says that, but what really, the main thing that people want is job satisfaction. If you're not happy in your job, you're going to be unhappy in your life. That's it.
It really is.
And so I thought about this, and I thought, I've been through every job in that company, filing clerks, estimators. The estimator was telling me his job, and I fell asleep while he was telling me his job, nodded off.
And it's like, it's one of them, innit? And I find this one, we did want to touch on this yesterday, we never really did, but the, instructors and, some of the instructors in scaffolding even that you see up and down the country these days, like, if you're like, and some of them are wooden, do you know what I mean? I was saying you only do one qualification, really. You do like your petals or your AET, you do it once at the start of your scaffold instructing career, and you're supposed to do CPD, but most of people's CPD is just like what they've been doing in scaffolding, nothing around teaching. But, by the by, to your point, if the person who's delivering the training, QSing or scaffolding or whatever, estimating, isn't interested in it themselves, how the hell is he supposed to inspire someone else to be interested?
Inspire people, Right, so come the Christmas, I thought, I just sacked it. I couldn't do it. So then I'm on the dole. Don't know what I want to do. I tried to get to steel, because I've been rock climbing since I was 14. So I like being outside. I used to do rock climbing instructing, and something I didn't mention before, but I used to instruct on Duke of Edinburgh's awards. I didn't do it myself, but I used to instruct on the map reading and the map and compass work and the rock climbing, plus walking as well, all that. So, so I thought, try to go steel erecting. No chance. It's a closed shop then. It's
difficult to get into.
Dead hard to get into. Unless you knew somebody, you'd no chance of getting in. So anyway.
I bet it's like offshore, isn't it? Like that was my experience with offshore work, trying to get into that. Like you had to know someone. Different now, I guess.
Yeah. So my mate says, "Oh, we can get a job on this demolition site." So we both went down, got the job. Not got a clue. So this bloke says, "Are you top men?" I went, "The best," like that. not a top man. He's somebody who works on the top of the building with a pickaxe. He looked at me.
The best.
The best one like that. Was dead cocky.
Okay.
I thought I was that desperate for a job. You know what I mean? So within a week, I was up on the top breaking the copings down. Anyway, we went to this other job. My mate stayed there. Anyway, they tried to pull this beam out of this mill, and all the mill fell in the street with the scaffolding. So I had to go back, and he sorted it all out. Anyway, the scaffolders come to put it back up, and it was Mills's. And I watched them, and I thought, I can do that.
Yeah.
I thought that I can do that standing on my head.
Yeah.
I thought spanner,
exuberance of youth.
Spanner. I thought he's got a spanner at a level. That's all you need. Right, and I watched him do it.
Yeah,
so
you've got a level, haven't you? Well, the replica of sort of thing. What's that?
So it was a Raybone level. It's a Stanley one.
That's what you see in a lot of the old pictures. You see the old scaffs putting pictures on LinkedIn. It's just that hanging out of just a
pocket,
regular belt or a bit of rope on it. You say the pocket kind of thing.
Yeah. So I phoned a few firms up, and I got to start at altitude. So same again. I turned up there with like epoxy aluminium level and a plug spanner, because that's the same size. The plug spanner was 7/16 Whitworth, and I cut the T handle off the end of it. You know what I mean? And we're in the cabin. Someone, "Give me a spanner." He was holding the racks, a load of the lads, and I give him this spanner. He just threw it over his shoulder. What the hell's that?
I've had that done to me. That's definitely a scaffold.
They all looked at me anyway. It was a bloke called Freddie Thompson who started, and it was belted supervisor. Anyway, I started. Anyway, what they did then was there was no course. Well, I think there might have been course, but I didn't know that. They sent you out with the gang, and you didn't know it when they sent you out with the gang. Supervisor have a word with the charge on. Is he any good? No, leave him in the yard. Yeah, well, so I just progressed from there, really. I mean, so I did 6 months. You went 6 months. I did 6 months as a labourer. Then you went to what's called an improver. That's like an apprentice. So I did 6 months as an improver, and then I got made up to a full scaffold.
And this is all decided upon by the company.
Oh yeah. If they think you're competent, they'll give you the extra money.
Yeah.
There's no ticket with it. There's no formal qualification. That's
Because I was speaking to somebody from Italy, a lady called Francesca Fusa. She's going to come on the show. She's like the business development manager for a company called Pelosio in Italy. And we were talking about the differences between UK qualifications. This is even now. The difference between the UK qualifications and, their versions of, and it's like, it's the company, you know what I mean? The person employs you, they decide how competent you are and what level you're at, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess it was similar to that.
They have them model full bottle doubles, don't they? Have you seen them? Oh, God, horrendous thing.
Yeah, I always say to people, do you know what I mean? You don't really see much tubing fitting about the rest of the continent, but in Italy I've seen bits.
See a fair bit in France. I mean, because Mills is still going in France. It's nothing to do with whoever. They were in France before the Second World War, and they still use Mills's fittings. I've seen jobs there. I've seen footbridge over a 6-lane motorway on the tubing fitting, and that was years ago. Yeah. And footbridge over. I never took pictures of it, which at the time I never should. But I seen this footbridge over the river done in Mills's fittings.
Yeah, I'm like
immaculate.
The jobs you've seen. Yeah. I remember being around like Southeast Asia and like places like Indonesia and Malaysia and all that, and seeing scaffolding. Yeah. And I'm obviously you are going to be looking for it, but I've always wished that I would have took more photographs, and even jobs I've done myself. I wish I would have took more photographs. But when anyone was taking a photograph of them, I'd be like, "Didn't you sad bastard? Like, get your phone away." You know what I mean? Yeah. You regret it eventually, don't you?
Yeah. So I was at top hand after a year. Then did a year there. The thing was, it was a small company, and they did hardly any building sites, but they did anything else. Cradles, they did turf cradles, rope cradles. They had what they call steeple jennies. I didn't actually. I think it was involved with stripping one of them, but the motors went on the roof. Steeple jennies. They were Canadian. Slungs in cinemas, they were dead interesting.
Yeah, you were saying about those.
They don't what they do now. An engineer would have an heart attack now because it's a 10x10 grid. And if you ever look in an old cinema or theatre, you look up at the ceiling, you see like tin lids on it. It's literally a tin lid. And they have 2 long wires on it. They paint them after and pull them up on a light line and just tie them off. And you just hang hang the full scaffold on bonds, on wire bonds. It moves. When you get off it, you see it. You're like you've been on a yacht.
I've had that off a mast climber. Yeah. Not a mast climber.
Cradle.
No, scissor lift.
Yeah. And then
scissor lift.
What we used to do then, we was guaranteed 20 hours a night at time and a fifth. Really good jobs. You'd have to leave if it was a cinema, you'd have to leave a gap for the beam to go through. We did the ABC in Barrow, and he said, right, we're going away for Christmas. He said, right, check the beam, puts the beam on. Fine, beam goes through the scaffold, everything's okay. What he didn't tell us was he was having a cinemascope picture on, and it has black screens that move in and out on the actual screen itself. So the cinemascope thing comes. They open the black screens. It's a wider thing. There's a 3 foot shadow of a 3 foot double and punching it on the screen. They went mad. He's ruined everybody's Christmas. Well, we checked it. You should have opened the screen up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. Preparation, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and then I've been there 2 years, and I thought I was really confident I knew I could do any job. So I'd saved a load of money. And I went to France for 3 months.
Now, what was your nickname? You had to explain it to me.
Jack Benny, they called me, because he was a comedian, but I was famously tight. But the reason I wanted that money to go away. So if I was out, spending my money all the time, I wouldn't have had the money to. I mean, 3 months abroad.
Were a lot of people doing it back then? Was it like because obviously now, you get kids going on gap years and stuff like that. No.
I went on my own because I had a load of mates, good mates. So the mates who were in work all had good jobs. Yeah. So they weren't going to jack it in. And my mates who didn't have a job didn't have any money. So I thought, well, I can't afford a passenger. I can get somebody on the back of the bike, but I'm not paying for all their booze and everything else for 3 months. Do you know what I mean?
It sounds very familiar. I was saying when the first time I went down to London, I just seen an advert in the local newspaper. Well, sorry, it was a national newspaper. It was the Sun. Whoever's going to slag me off for reading the Sun. It was a long time ago. So reading the paper, and there was this advertisement in there. It's Forefront Scaffolding Solutions agency, and it was I'd heard it was good money working away. It was like £17 an hour or £18 an hour it was, which 2006, 7, mega money. And it was 12-hour shifts, and then you were getting another 2 hours for travels, so 14-hour day. I'll have some of that. Asked all the lads. Everyone's like that. Nah. Like you say, either in good jobs or piss cans, dole bosses. Nobody who wanted it. Ended up going down there on my own. And it's that you could call it cockiness, couldn't you? You could call it brash and cocky, but it's that self-awareness to think, you know what, I'll be, if it fucks up, pardon me French, but I can come back and I'll be fine.
Going down, initially they go, another fucking northerner. But if they know you know your job, I mean, I've no problem. I've worked with loads of London lads, and as soon as they get to know you, they bang on, absolutely bang on. Some really good scaffolders.
I reckon
they're always a bit wary at first. Yeah. You think, what's he going to do? You know what I mean? Yeah. But
in the end, I made some good lads down there, but I don't think I did myself any favours when I first started. Like this fella, he's probably been in the job, 20 years or whatever, and he's bridging over this gap. He's throwing a board across, and it's supported at either end. He's banged the tranny in the middle of it. Well, I went, "What's that?" And he went, "What do you want?" I went, "One tranny in it." He went, "How many do you want then?" So he puts another one in and goes like that. He said, 2 trannies for a 13-foot board. He went, "What do you want? 4?" I went, "No, 5. 5 trannies for a 13-foot board." But we were saying yesterday about Lindens, we'll come back to that later on. But I was Linden trained, so 5 trannies for a 13-foot board. And he was like, I know, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because sometimes you can be right, but just because you're right doesn't mean you should be like, And I was 21 or something, 21. I should have just kept my mouth shut. I probably made a bad name for myself early days, but it was mega. And like you say, it's having that sort of you need to be a bit cocky, I suppose. It's like turning up and going, "We're top men."
If you know your job, I always say, a lot of them don't learn the craft properly. It's your job. Take the time and trouble to learn it. Learn what you're doing. I don't think I mentioned this yesterday, but I learned a couple of things in private school, good things. So the first thing I learned was we're all singing, and the teacher used to push this piano in on 2 wheels. That piano had 2 wheels in the middle. And he went, "Who's singing out of tune?" 40 odd in the class, remember? Yeah. No, there's 30 in the class like they have now. 40 odd in the class. It's baby boomers, aren't we, after the war? So I'm singing away. He says, "Right, carry on singing." He's walking up and down. I'm I said to me, I went, when he finds out who's singing out of tune, they're going to get involved. Gets to me, he goes, it's you, Corfield. You sound like a sick bee humming boy. Sit in that corner there. So after all the music last night, I just sat in the corner and I thought, if I do something bad, I don't have to do it. So that was one lesson learned.
Yeah.
And the other one, we had another teacher. Our primary school, you had to say, your last 2 years at primary, you had the same teacher for 2 years to get you through your 11 plus. School I went to, Langworthy Road, had more 11 pluses than any other school in Salford, all the way through. More passes.
More passes.
Yeah. So he'd been in the RAF, but he'd been out in India, and he was out in the Pacific on an atoll and a listening station. And he said when used to get typhoons, he used to have to climb up the palm trees and tie himself to the palm trees. So what he said was, he says, anybody know what a wheel tapper is? No. So he said, in India, when a train stops, he says, they have a man who has a hammer on a long handle, and he walks along and taps all the wheels. He says, if it rings, he doesn't do anything. If it's a clunk sound, he puts a chalk mark on it, and that happens at every station. He says, now, the reason it clinks and doesn't clink is the wheel that doesn't clink has got a crack in it. He says, the main point here about the wheel tapper is he doesn't know there's a crack in it. All he knows is to go and put a piece of chalk mark on it. He doesn't know why he's doing it. He said it's not that he's not intelligent. He's never been told, so he doesn't know. So that's a wheel tapper. He can do his job and he's good at his job. He doesn't know what he's doing. So he said, don't beat a wheel tapper.
Yeah.
If you're doing a job, find out the ins and outs and why you're doing it. And I've always, and me and Paul.
Really good. I mean, I was going to mention Paul then as well.
Me and Paul, if we get a lad come on and he'll do something, and like, you know, with scaffolding, you say, right, put that clip that way. And then 10 minutes later, in a similar situation, you put it the other way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we see lads doing things, and we go, wheel tapper. And we call, that's what we call somebody. Not that they're stupid or incompetent.
Yeah.
But
he just doesn't know why he's doing what
doesn't know why he's been shown to do it one way, and that's why we call them wheel tappers. So
yeah. I think it's really important, actually. I think, and it doesn't happen anywhere near as often as it should do. Like, but you say, like, we go back to college, I know we talk about a lot of the training and stuff. Put an independent scaffold up, put a birdcage scaffold up. No one's sitting them down and go, what birdcage scaffolds for? Where do we use them? What does an independent, why do we build independent scaffolds? What are they mainly used for? If we were building this for a renderer, how might it look different from if we was building it for a bricklayer? Do you know what I mean? There are differences. He's thinking about why you're doing the job. I was speaking yesterday, weren't we, about like the first job when I got let out on my own.
You put the lift above the bleeding roof for a good time.
No one had told me. He said, go and build an independent scaffold. He said, they're working on the roof. And there's a 21-year-old, he said, build a scaffold. I was working with a driver. He didn't know anything about
He just passed
me the kit. Built the scaffold, as I would have done in college, because I'd been taught, and I had some good tutors in college as well. So I built it as I would do in college. The scaffold was sound, but
not fit for purpose.
No, the lift was fucking above the gutters, and it was for a re-roof. But I'd been used to the working platform being getting as close to where you needed to, and he told me they were working on the roof. Yeah. Sometimes it's in structure as well, but
it's like, well, I tell you about, Alice, we did very few sites. So we go on this site where it was a mill, it was where Sainsbury's was at Prestwich now. So the ground was dog rough. So they put a kicker lift in for the bricklayers to get up to the first site. Normally you don't put a kicker. They don't, no rolling stone in then. It was like a bomb site. So they put this kicker in, and there was a return, and there was a doorway, and it was a precast concrete building with a brick skin. And he put a dead complicated return, all cuts and everything. And this lad went, I can't plumb this standard. We've got the ledges in. Went, come here, put my foot on the wall, pull the standard, kick the wall over. Bricklayer went bleeding ballistic. He'd been days on it. All these dead awkward
really
cuts. The most intricate part on the job. I went and seen the agent. I went, sorry mate. I said, I kicked the wall over. He said, that bricklayer's going mad. He went, what? He's going mad? he's on day work. What's he moaning about? And I thought, his job is he spent all that time, but and he didn't give a shit, the agent. He went, he's on day work. What's he moaning about?
Do you know what? He's definitely, because you'd be pissed off, wouldn't you?
Oh,
You base the job out of it.
Oh, of course,
You would be pissed off, wouldn't you? But it's weird because it's the nature of our job is it does go up and come down again, so it is temporary.
Yeah. But I mean,
I suppose someone who's.
But I mean, I just put my foot on this one. It was green. He'd laid it the day before, you know. So the lesson learned.
It is, isn't it? It's live and learn. Someone said to me a while ago, you know, these old sayings, and I love old sayings, me, anyone who knows me, I'm kind of full of them. Or maybe they said full of it, but I do like an old saying. And he said, some people have got 20 years experience. He said, some people have got 1 year's experience 20 times over. You know, they're not learning anything. But if you learn from your mistakes, it's...
The only thing at a teaching, he said, if you want to know anything, this was the geography teacher, he said, belting teacher, if you want to know anything and you're not sure, he said, if it's legislation, he said, there's a shop in town called a Majesty's Stationery Office. And he said, you can go there and you can buy any books and that. So I'd not been scaffolding, so I went there and some of them books, I said, what have you got on scaffolding? So I got them, the 2 metal scaffolding ones, and got them there.
These.
Yeah, and the other one, and I got the 1960s.
Those old illustrations, magic them out.
Yeah, I got the 1966.
And again, with this, there's no copy and paste and drag and drop and all the rest of it. That's someone's drawn that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can pick that up or
SGB on the fittings.
Some of the old relics.
Yeah, so I got them, and I got the 1966 regs. So I'm looking at these. I've not been doing it. I've only been doing it 6 months when I've got all these regs. So I'm a barrack-room lawyer now. So he did a job he seen a job in town, independent. And, first thing was, this gang did a job and they didn't put a stop end on it. So the supervisor went, you're not put a stop end on, you're not at Turner's now. They used to, the raker, they said, well, I put a raker in, Fred. He went, no, you got to put a stop end in. It's only single hand. We've got a raker in, what does he need a stop end in for? So the raker acted as a stop end for some firms. Yeah. So I said, it's toe boards. I've got to stop and toe boards on the ends. Oh, well, not so fast. If we don't put stop, we'll just do the front. But I said, but the regs state you've got to have a toe board on it. And they went, can't put one on, can we? And I didn't put a stop end toe board on an independent till I was at Palmer's in 1978.
With it being a single handrail? You've know nothing for a dead man, have you really?
What they sent out was they sent a toe board out with a batten on top. So you clipped it to the inside standard. The batten sat over the outside toe board and you put a nail through it. And that was 1978. I've been scaffolding 6 years then. Yeah. And every independent in town didn't have a stop end toe board on it. None of them.
Mad, innit?
Not one of them had a stop end toe board on the ends.
And then you go up and down the local street now and you still see them.
But I mean,
these are proper companies you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just mad how things change.
Well, at Altitude, they didn't have any sleeves, joint pins. Everything. You based out with 21, stopped out with 21s.
Everything on spigots. Yeah. No sleeves.
I didn't tell you I invented the Aki beam, did I? Didn't tell you that one.
No.
So I've been doing it a year. And we go to I'm the top hand. Neil Redford, who was a partner in Ace, was the labourer, come improver. Like old Tony Grimshaw, who's no longer with us. He was the charge hand. So we go to this big house in Wilmslow. And it's got to put a temporary roof on it. And it's like a 40-foot span. So.
Is this proper monopitch, obviously?
Monopitch roof, yeah. So it's got a drawing, the supervisor on it. And it's just got 2 spurs off the independent and then that's not going to work. The roof's in the way and everything. So this time I said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. So I said, right. So what I did, I said, right, they had a load of alley. So I said, send us out. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 beams. So I've got a load of aluminium long and a load of 3 foots in aluminium 2 foots. And I made trusses up, 40-foot trusses on the scaffold. And we walked to
like ladder beams?
Well, yeah, but like, it's like what I call it. There's 2 types. There's a Warren truss and a Pratt truss. An Aki beam is a Warren truss with vertical. The Pratt truss is where they sort of it's all pullbacks all the way. So I built this Pratt truss up, 2 foot deep. It's like an Aki beam is now. We walked it out, sanded it, boarded it out. She didn't know monoflex. She had what called DP.
As in like the 450 alley beams.
Yeah. So
all the brands are available.
Did that. So we put these sheets on, no Kentledge on it or sizing it. Luckily it was over there. Anyway, the manager come out, Dickie White, and it was Mr. White. Nobody called him by his first name. He didn't call it. It was Mr. White when he spoke to him.
Oh, was it really formal back then?
Oh yeah, Mr. White, not Dickie. And then the managing director come out, John Duggan, and I'm sort of round the corner, and he come out and he looked at it, and John Duggan looked at it and went, "Fucking hell, Dick, there's only the plumb braces missing." And he was back, and he went, "Who's done that?" He went, "Top hand." He went, "How long's he been doing it?" He went, "A year." He went, "Fuck."
Oh, I guess trailblazer in it. Like, well, innovators definitely always been part of your makeup.
It was like, when I look back, it was like, just like an Aki beam that I'd built. I'd said to him, unit beams had just come out. I said, get some of them steel unit beams. He went, they're too heavy, you'll never lift them in place. And they had what they call fish bellies, which is a massive big truss. They were like 30 foot long, and they had an horn on the end, and it went down and back up again.
A lot of people call it, well, there are various different systematic, but the reinforced layer, the transom. Yeah. A lot of people call them fish bellies. Same sort of idea.
It's like
same
that.
Idea.
Same idea, but 30 foot long.
No thanks.
Well, do you remember them?
Even unit beams. Yeah. Unit beams are. We were talking yesterday about the Manchester Civil Justice Centre, and all the floors. It was just horses all the way along them with unit beams. These horrible things, heavy as God knows what.
We did a job on. We did a job on Ribblehead Viaduct. They were fitting patras plates. So they had to drill through the bridge, put a bar through, and then put them plates on somewhere else together. So 13 foot tower up one pier, 90 foot, 8 foot tower up the other, 40 foot span with unit beams. So only two handed. So just rigged a wire.
40 foot span with unit beams?
Yeah. So because they did cradles then, so I got a turf out of the yard, and the wire bond, put the turf between it, jockey pulley on it, shoved it out 40 foot, did the other one 40 foot span.
Jesus.
But,
you
not seen that video that we did that, there's a sewer pipe at Rossendale over the River Irwell, and it was leaking. So what they had to do was put a line. They got this firm to fix the leak, United Utilities, beat this one right. So it's leaking on the flange. It's about 2.5, 3 foot diameter pipe. So what they did was, they wrapped Denso tape round it, round the joint, and then put a ratchet strap round it, and charged United Utilities 30,000 quid, and they paid them. So they had to put a liner in it. So,
you hear these stories all the time, and you just think, how have you got the kind of bottle? Because it's going to come back to you eventually. So what do you say on the phone when someone's, that job that we paid you 30 grand for? It's just a bit of tape and a ratchet.
Well, we've done it. So what they had to do was they had to redirect. So they had to we built a scaffold over the top of the pipe. Then they put a pipe over it and pumped it over. So over the other side, there was a concrete plinth, and then there was a cliff. So they said, you can walk down the bank. When they'd looked at it, it was winter. When you walk down the bank on the other side, it's just all overgrown. So me and Paul looked at it. Supervisor kept away, obviously, because he's dodgy. So I've put a life jacket on, tied a rope round me, walked across the pipe, tied the rope off, pulled a wire bond across, tied the wire bond off onto the pipe, tied it back up. So then clipped my harness into the wire bond. Then I come back then, Paul clips into the wire bond, goes across. We put a pull line on, put a jockey pulley on, and we can send a thing backwards and forwards on this wire bond. So I'll send him a bucket of fittings over, tips that out, pulls back, send him the drill over, that comes back, send him a abandon plate over, send him a 10-foot ladder beam over on this wire bond, he drills that in, and then comes back, then on the wire bond, we just hook up the alley beam, just send them across 5 alley beams, 20 metre span. And then when we're working on it, we've still got the wire bond.
It's the person who, I've always found this with certain jobs like that, you think, what I'm doing here to build this thing for someone to work off. Yeah. If the person fixing the thing was doing what I was doing, it'd be done now. But do you know what I mean? You think, why am I doing?
But so it was just wire bonds across, and it was a doddle of a job.
Yeah. They are the more interesting one, aren't they? They're definitely the more interesting jobs. How compliant and legal they are and all the rest of it. But I mean, going back to sort of a time at altitude. And, we were saying yesterday about the swivel on clip. Things are obviously very different.
Yeah, double clip.
Oh, sorry, double clip.
Your labourer had a spanner. He made the rake. He put a double on the rake. So the rake, then he go up. The double was always, the boiler double was always facing downhill, so it hooked on, couldn't fall off. Nipped it off, went on top, clip on the ledger. That's how we did it. And it's
just the difference you will see now between
when the health and safety act come in. That's like that was up to from 72. They changed. They hardly had any swivels. They changed it to swivels. They did change it then. But it's
just totally different way of doing things. Yeah. And then obviously you go away. You go to after altitude, France.
Yeah.
How long was you in France for?
3 months.
3 months, just sort of
just on a beach in Marseille. I had a campsite in Marseille. One day there, so I digress a bit. I used to pass this castle every day. I used to go to this beach every day. I used to go on my motorbike, so I'd go. I had social contact because there were always people coming and going on the site, a lot of English. So I used to sit in the thing bar on the site at night. So I wasn't sort of isolated. I didn't sort of hook up with anybody permanent. You know what I mean? But so I used to pass this castle. And anyway, I never used to go to this other beach on a Saturday because it was always packed. So this day I was passed on a Saturday. There's a big queue for the castle. I thought, castle's open. Park the bike up. I've got a pair of flip-flops on, a pair of shorts, helmet, my hand t-shirt. I get in this queue. And I'm in the queue about 10 minutes. I think, there's only women and children in this queue. There's no men in it at all. And then I look at where the door is, and a bloke in the unit, it was the prison it was visiting time. And everybody's looking at us. I had to sort of turn around and tiptoe away. I was queuing up for a prison. I just thought it was a tourist attraction.
It's fucking Alcatraz. I think you do those experiences and all the rest of it, travelling. And I was saying, before about a lot of kids do it now, and it's like the dumb thing. And I think rightly so as well. I do think that broadens your horizons. I think, I was saying yesterday, about having the self-awareness to know that certain jobs weren't for you, and getting into something different, and then having the time to travel around.
That's the problem with the recruitment now. People don't know what they want, and they struggle. You're struggling to recruit people. But I mean, do you want to go into that at the minute?
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's weird because I found the best scaffolders I've worked with. Yeah. I've been like the career scaffolders, the ones who've been in it from young and progressed all the way through. I don't really see many. There are probably exceptions. So I suppose the same with like boxing. You don't see many world champions that came into the sport. At sort of 21, 22. Yeah. I think Deontay Wilder was like quite old as a world champion when he came into the sport. Most people, they've been in it since the youth.
See, you don't need any formal qualifications, do you? I mean,
and that is the beauty of it as well.
You don't need anything. I mean, I was thinking last night, what sort of person do we want to recruit? And I'm thinking, maybe somebody who's done a Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. They've got a bit of a social conscience because you have to do a social side of it. They don't mind being outside. They've been camping and hiking. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Well, I think there's big pushes at the minute to get ex-military personnel into scaffolding.
But Chris was saying that a lot of them know what they're doing anyway. I mean, when we move on again to something else, they're not looking at the other end of the scale where people are leaving the trade early. I mean, I'm lucky I'm 71 and still scaffolding. Yeah. I've been scaffolding today. But what are we doing to retain those people? Yeah,
and keep them in the actual job itself.
Yeah. I mean,
it's an hard one to answer, isn't it? Really, I think you're right. It's both ends of the spectrum, isn't it? How we're bringing people in, and how are we retaining good talent? Because that, a lot of the time, I mean, it said in the book, then we got the SG6 book again. I did read it out yesterday. It was an interesting line in it. Manual handling is the most significant occupational health hazard faced by the scaffolding industry today. Very rarely do scaffolders reach retirement age still working on the spanner. Contrary to that, you've got obviously the likes of yourself.
I'm the exception. I mean, why aren't the powers that be, Scissors or NASC, looking at who's coming out of the game, looking at the ages, doing the review and saying, well, let's go and interview some of these people and saying why they're coming out? Because I've always said there's a place for everybody in all abilities. I mean, like girl, what was her name?
Vicky.
Vicky, right. So she was saying about with 21s and like the light gauge tube, and she's not. But as long as there's one in the gang who can top out with 21, she's fine. She can ledge it up. She can do all that. Maybe just the 21s. But going back to Linden's always had light gauge tube. We used to call it Galley Alley, and the reason they had the light gauge tube was there was a load of men going out because it was not right. My view on light gauge tube is that as of now, they should ban the importation of heavy gauge tube. That's it.
No more type. Every single hire company, by the way, that have won the scaffolding business, every single hire company that we went to, probably because it doesn't bend as easily, all type 4.
Is that how it's called?
Generation.
Is that what they call it, type 4?
Yeah, type 4.
So I'd ban it being brought into the country. Existing stocks, I'd recommend that you cut them down to 16 foot. But I won't make it a law, but I'd just ban the importation. The reason I'm still doing this at my age is there's several reasons. One is I've worked at Linden's for more than 17 years on light gauge tube. I moved stuff around with a V-barrow. I've had a winch. And one thing I was taught when I was at altitude was you don't carry more than 26 foot of anything. 2 13-foot boards, 3 8-foot tubes, 5 5s. Never ever carry 2 21s. The only exception, I'd occasionally carry 2 16s at Linden's tube, but I won't do it. I've never done it.
Yeah, and it's just a bravado.
But you see these videos of them on YouTube and they're carrying 7 and 8 boards, and you think, what are you doing?
And we've got, and I mean, when I started at Linden's,
I've done it.
I've done it. You know what I mean?
But we should be more aware
going
nowadays.
To the gym and everything. You think you want to compete with the bigger lads and all that, carrying 9 13 footballs on your shoulder. And really, like I said, I always say this when I'm delivering training courses. I've had an operation on my knee, and all those days carrying stupid amount of boards, all I got for it was, is it worth that?
I had a mate who was, I used to go weight training with him, but he'd been in Nick and he'd been on course. So they had all courses when he was in Nick, and one of them was a doctor, and she went through about all the weightlifting because he was doing the weights in the Nick. And what she said was, when you see weights doing a deadlift, all right, you can lift it, but they're not the back's not moving, everything's static. She said, when you're carrying something, it's moving and crunching. And she says, the other thing she said is, you get a bloke who's massive, well built, 2 people the same height. She said, and somebody who's scrawny the same height. She says, you get their 2 skeletons, they may more or less the same. The bones aren't bigger. So although you're already, because you're mostly already carrying a load of weight, and then you're putting a load of weight on the same frame as a scrawny bloke, where you think you've got this big frame, but you've not.
That's what they're saying. They don't find any fat skeletons. That's a different argument about a different thing.
But say that's my mantra.
Never more than 26 foot on your shoulder.
No. And even that exceeds the recommendations, doesn't it?
I mean, with SG6, I've always said to, when I mention that book a lot when I'm delivering training courses. If you were to walk into a room full of scaffolders and you had a handbook of SG4, or even if you just mentioned the words SG4 to a group of scaffolders, every single person in the room these days, thankfully, would know exactly what you were speaking about. If you said SG6, I don't think you'd get the same response. No. And it says in the book, it's the most significant. I always say, put your hand up. You know someone who's fallen off and hurt themselves. And some put their hand up, but it's quite rare. And if someone knows somebody who's died, and it's still the leading cause of fatality on UK construction sites, but it's rare that you find a scaffolder in a group when I'm teaching. I mean, that's lost somebody like that.
I was going to say that it's all these rules are coming. I'm all for them, but before the regs came in, we didn't have handbags. Scaffolders were falling off like lemmings. They wasn't. It was still quite.
So the hysteria.
It's still statistically a safe industry. We've made it safer, which is a good thing. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't a massive. Obviously, it's not nice that people fall off, get injured, and die. But it wasn't a massive problem. It was a problem, but not a massive problem.
And I think the improvement in the standards also is for the users of the scaffolding. Do you know what I mean? Like the people who aren't as clued up and as used to working at height. And, I think that's it.
I mean, we never had ladder gates or arches.
Yeah. So that side of the safety is obviously improving the standards and moving things in the right direction. But I mean, you ask any scaffolder, they might not know somebody who's fallen off and been killed or whatever. Everyone knows someone with a bad back, bad knee,
shoulder,
carpal tunnel syndrome in the wrist. It's It's a common thing.
Yeah.
That sort of leads me sort of back to sort of maybe after you come back from France and then gone back into scaffolding. You started working for some companies and then working on the tower blocks.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's a focus there within yourself and of trying to reduce the manual handling element of scaffolding, and some of the kind of inventions and stuff that you'd mentioned and like little innovations. The things that would do massive. Do people massive things today? Like you look at the Quaso you're talking about.
It's on the Quaso, and it's a brilliant thing, but it's a bit like when you look at uranium. There's only countries can afford it. It's cost so much to develop that only massive companies can be able to afford that. Because if it's such a massive job that you need that, half the time there's going to be a crane there anyway. What the industry,
back in the day, perhaps there wasn't as much of that stuff around.
No, but what the industry needs is a cheap, portable, fast hoist that replaces the rope and wheel. I've got it. I mean, so it started off. Yeah. The Palmers did Rochdale Town Hall, and they had to get the bells out. So they had to get 21-foot ladder beams up for the loading bay to bring the bells out to retune them. And they borrowed. There's a thing called a Sager hoist, which was like a mini crane that we used to barrow hoist. That used to put on it sits on a scaffold standard. So they borrowed the winch unit off one of them from SGB, but it had an electric motor on. So they pulled these ladder beams up with this Sager hoist. So they said to me, "You're going on these flats at Ashton." So I said, "I don't mind going on the flats, but can I go and pick the winch up off Rochdale Town Hall?" Yeah. So I went and got the winch off Rochdale Town Hall. And then what we did was put the winch on the lift, ran the wire bond through up 2 meters high through a gin wheel. Wire bond goes down. I've got a weight on it and a tail. And then labourer ties it off. I bring the winch up, comes up. I can land 2 long at a time or 3 boards. And then it's free fall going back down. And that's how we did it. And then fast forward, I did quite a few like that. I did one in Blackburn. And then fast forward, that went back. And I bought one because they had plant hire firm, Selwoods was in the same, they were in the same group, and they had a similar thing, but it was an Ace midget, and it had a Villiers petrol engine. I'd bin that, put an electric motor on it. And I used to use that it was only slow, but it did the job. And then I bought another 2 with diesel engines on, and they were the bollocks then. And like, but same again, I'd just send a ladder beam out from get a 21-foot ladder beam onto the top of the roof. So you get them up just however you get them up in the lift, well, not in the lift, not 21-foot ladder. What we do is we'd rig a cat head up and use the winch on the bottom to pull the 21-foot ladder beam up and land it. Right. And then put a ginny wheel on the end of that. So then winch is on the bottom, send 3 long up vertical, goes above where you're working, then just lower it off slow angle and man tails it in 5 boards at a time. Happy days. So it's dodgy, like, but it. So works. Are we setting that up? We're putting like some sort of beams out on the top of the job. On the tower block. What 21-foot ladder beam just goes out past just one. Just one. There's a cat head. Yeah, and just a bit of a plan brace on it, just as a cat head. Yeah. Right. And then I had this in my head like this sort of like a horse or like. No, the horse comes later. Right. So then get introduced to Steve Epworth, and we've got some blocks of flats in Liverpool. So he says, he's an ex-steeplejack. So he says, "Oh, my winch is a bit big to get down." I said, "Well, I've got mine." So he looks at it, a bit small, what that's going to do. So anyway, we go up on the roof, we rig an horse on the roof. I've not got a clue what he's doing. I'm thinking, what's it? And I bet at that point you're probably thinking, why didn't that's a lot of work. No, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you've got a cat head. I know. He's building an horse, and I've seen it. I know he's not an idiot. I've met him. I can tell by his talk, he knows what he's doing. I'm thinking, what's he doing here? So he builds this horse out, puts the ginny wheel in the middle of it. So 2 wire bonds go down from the horse, just a bit out from just like past the job. So it's 7 or 8 foot out from the building. 2 wire bonds go down. He feeds this 8-foot tube through on pulleys, ties it all to a frame, tightens these, what they call deadlines up, rigs a winch wire up to my winch. So what basically you've got an 8-foot tube running up and down 2 wires. And then he puts 2 2-meter slings on them. So it's right ready to go now. We should just get the op-ups up there. So we've got op-ups on the lift.
So the 8-foot tube is touching the wires?
It's on the wires. It travels up and down the wires horizontally.
Right.
So you've got like a V rope above it.
Like we were saying, like a trapeze almost.
Yeah, so you've got an 8-foot tube running up and down 2 wires with 2 slings on. So then my winch, you take 3 long or 5 boards. So it puts 3 long on it, send it up to past where they're working. But because it's at an angle, it's about 20 or 30 foot out from the building, these dead lines at an angle. So then he has this lever, he slackens the dead lines off. And the tube just come floating in towards you. And when they're floating in, just lower them off. They've like sat
and
on...
they're landing horizontal.
Sat on up horizontal, take the slings off. Lad at the bottom pulls these dead lines tight. The 8-foot tube slings out. It's free fall. That goes down like a rocket. While you're taking them off, he's got the next 3 tubes on. So, as an example of how fast it is, we did this.
So, with your one, though, the original one you had, how was you loading them inwards? Was you just...
No. Yeah, well, he went above you. It went vertical.
Ah, right. So, you're just having to break him in.
Yeah, it went vertical, and you got hold of it, and hopefully, because it's free fall, he'd load it off slow, not with a bleeding bang, and so you'd walk it along, and it'd just land on the lift on a skid.
Yeah.
And then you'd undo it. So, it wasn't as safe. I mean, whether it's legal or not, it was safer than an open wheel.
Well, the thing is, this is before the days of like Lola and lifting plans and all the rest of it, isn't it?
Yeah, so an example of how fast it is, we did the Crown Courts and he dropped off 300 brand new boards on a multi-lift body at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was sending them up 17 lifts. So there's just me on the bottom, sending them up on this diesel winch. And there's one lad at the top landing them on the op-ups. And I sent 300 boards up 17 lifts in just under 2 hours.
That's insane, that, isn't it?
And
that's unbelievable.
I mean, we did.
You think just in terms of we're talking about manual handling.
Yeah.
So you reduced the manual handling a little bit, literally tenfold because
virtually to zero. All I'm doing is pulling it onto a table,
and all he's doing is slinging them.
He lands them they land on the op-ups. He takes the slings off and he just drags them off the op-ups onto the lift. That's it.
Whereas the way that you'd have to do it manual handling wise, you'd have you'd either be on a open wheel, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or if you were very lucky, you'd have to put these 10 men, that, innit? Yeah. You nearly 20 lifts. You probably got a man every other lift. Yeah, and that's, a man every other lift with brand new
boards, no chance. No. So it's just
not enjoyable.
I mean, like we did Island House. He had a massive big diesel winch, which was off a barrows. We call it Wickham UDM. That didn't have free fall on it. And we 43 lifts that was. And he's sending 12 long at a time up on 18 boards. When we send the animals up, because we've got an 8-foot tube, he just hooks them on the 8-foot tube, sends them up on the 8-foot tube, we used to sling a 10-foot tube off the slings, then hang the animals on that. That'd go up, bring it in, and the 10-foot tube would sit on the op-ups, and then we just put a clip on it, and then we just lift the animals off it.
See, this is it's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because that clearly, although yes, in today's world, you're always looking at the risk, and rightly so. And you have created one because you've created lifting operations, and there are obviously other risks associated to that. But you've done away with the most significant risk.
Yeah.
From an occupational health perspective, to scaffolders. What I don't get is with a lot of what we do in the health and safety sort of sphere is we see something and we look at it as cutting corners.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, yeah, it is cutting corners.
That's what we're supposed to do.
We want to make it quicker.
Yeah.
We want to make it simpler. We want to make it more efficient. So we'll find the way of making it more efficient and a proper, proactive health and safety industry should be looking at those things.
The regs say you should avoid manual handling at all costs. I mean, I've got another development of it. Steve Epworth's idea, he did it with steel ladder beams originally. So if you look at an Alimac hoist, although it's got a square mast, it literally climbs up 2 tubes. It has a rack on it. It has a carrier. So what I've got is I've built a carrier you stand an Aki beam up vertical and tie it to the rungs. then when you top it out, we have a top out with spigots, but it has a tube welded in the middle, so there's no bolts when it's topped out. And I have this little frame that runs up and down it on a wire bond, and then has 2 fittings welded on it. So you can do this progressive. You don't have to come from the roof with this one. So then you put an 8-foot tube on, put your slings on that, send your gear up on that. It goes past your op-up. Well, you turn the op-up sideways, goes past the op-ups, turn the op-ups out, drop your gear on it. It works.
So there's 3. There's 3 innovations, like straight away.
I've got
the fourth one.
I've got all my hands up. That's
another one to Steve Etworth.
Steve Etworth. I've got all my hand up there. That's it.
I think I referred to you yesterday jokingly as like the Fred Dibnah of the scaffolding world, and we said that he had a reputation that preceded him apparently. But just the innovation.
I've got to give credit where it's due. I'm not going to claim credit for that.
Yeah, but it's kind of standing on. I think Newton called it standing on the shoulders of giants. You know what I mean? You see something, it's good. You work with it, and you improve it. Yeah. The fourth, did we say the 4th or 5th one I wanted to speak about was the V barrow. Yeah. Because I know that Paul sells those to the leeches now, doesn't he?
Yeah, so I was off, going back, we worked on Matt Vitti and Price, we were putting sprinklers in. Matthew Halls were doing the sprinklers. And they had a V barrow for moving their pipes.
And just for context, by the way, a V barrow is a manual handling aid with a pump truck or and a stillage. You can move a lot of kit and materials, along a nice flat surface, bumpy ground, you're knackered. And if you want to get it through that door, or a narrow passage, you're screwed. The V-barrow sort of solves that as well as a lot of other issues. Yeah. It's a V-shaped wheelbarrow on 2 wheels that you can transport a lot of kit with.
So we used to use this one for moving stuff around the warehouse. So we'd get 20 odd boards on it. Had a welded handle on it and 2 wheelbarrow wheels. So fast forward, I'm off sick with a bad back. I had a trapped nerve, so I was off for nearly 5 months. But my dad and my brother had an engineering business, and they used to make sack trucks, TNT and loads of firms. So I thought I was like machining the toes for the trucks, and I think I used to do a bit of MIG welding, but I'd weld the toes up. He wouldn't let me weld a full truck. I wasn't qualified for that. I'd put them in the jig, weld them up, grind them. So I thought, right, I'll make one of these V-barrows. So I made one. Main innovation was that instead of having a welded handle on it, I just welded an half fitting on. So you could put it in the boot of your car, put an aluminium tube on. So it started.
It just condenses down like this.
Yeah. It'll go through a standard. So it had these small wheels on it and wasn't that well. It was just narrow. So loaded it up first off. It bent because I'd only done it with angle iron. So I just welded some flat bar sideways in it so it didn't bend. So the next thing was, I was on Kellogg's and there was a wheelbarrow that was knackered, the 2-wheeled wheelbarrow. So they were throwing it out. So they didn't need the wheels. So they come home with me, slitting disc on, take the axle off. It's a little bit like Trigger's brush, this rebarrow. So new axle, put these wheels on, good. Oh, so the next thing is, I can still get the boards on because they carry 25 boards. One man can push 25 boards on the flat, no problem. The next thing is I can't get enough 5s on it. So get this flat bar, put it in this 25-ton press, bend this flat bar, weld it on, and get 55s in it now. Still got the handle on it, goes in my boot. You go on jobs and lads say, bleeding nose, that half an hour later, I couldn't matter that V-bar off your could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the loads that said that. And then the next one, we was on the airport, but we'd have to go between T1 and T2. But we'd have to take all our tools and like that. So the V-bar just had to vote. So what I did was cut some buffalo ply up, put the buffalo ply in the bottom. So we could throw all our tools in. So now my brother started, it took me ages to get him to make them. Anyway, we finally sat down and he made the jig slightly different than mine, made it easier. And he says to me, belting that because I make these sack trucks and I get lengths of 6 metre angle iron. And I've got bins and bins full of that angle iron. So he says, it's all offcuts that I won't throw away. And that's what I make the V-barrows out of. So it's costing me nothing. All I've got to buy is the axle and they are fitted. So I said, can you get us some? I'm not nicking fittings for you. So he used to buy, he'd buy swivels. He'd beat this one, right? It's dearer to buy an half fitting than it is to buy a swivel and cut it in half. The swivel's cheaper than an half fitting. Work that one out.
That's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. So he used to buy pressed steel. I said, why are you buying pressed steel? He went, they're cheap. I said, yeah, but a scaffold looks at it and knows it's a bag of shit, but it wouldn't change. Comes to me, he went, he says, you never guess what? He went, can't believe it. I've got to start buying steel for the V-barrows now because I've used all the scrap up. I thought, how many have you sold? Don't give me on for it. I haven't got a penny out of it.
Oh, really?
No.
And he's been flogging them left, right, and centre.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he's sold some galvanised for food plants. And all that. So when we did it again, I said, right, what a swivel on each side because we're going down corners. So he put a swivel on one corner. I said, why have you put a swivel on that? I said, it's on the same corner. No, it's on the other. No, if you turn it round, it's on the same corner. I said, one at both ends, one
yeah, one at each corner.
Like. Well, he'd done one diametrically opposite. So in effect, it was on the same corner. So I said, no, put them both the same side. So we put them both the same side. And then we got put a steel plate. So he's out of business now. So Paul makes them himself. Powder coated did the business. And I mean, you can, we did Bank House, big tower block in Manchester. All the animals and all that. We had one hoist point. We didn't carry them round. Just wheeled them round on the V-barrow. Everything wheeled down and put in the hoist. And even when we used to do the tower blocks, if we had to take boards all the way round to board out, you can't get round the return. Obviously, you've got a 13-foot board. You're not going to push that round the return. So what we'd do was we'd just put a short standard in the return. So the car handrail would be in, or we'd leave the bottom handrail out. Legally, we didn't need that. So the corner standard would be missing. So you could push a V-barrow
round the corner,
20 boards round the corner to board out. Then obviously, when you've done with that, you just top the corner out, put your bottom guardrail in.
Yeah.
Piece of piss.
Yeah.
And it just,
so many people don't do, everyone expects everything to be done for them. Yeah. And then the easiest thing to do is just complain and go, shit, this and all that. Yeah. But
walking boards all the way around the tower block, hundreds and hundreds of them. You're not every lift for
make something though, innit? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was saying on it about, man, if you wanted a bike, you got some handlebars, you found, whatever, and you kind of piece the bike together.
Yeah, I remember rigging a bike up and the thing, when we were kids, the thing to have on your back was have a cordless crank. Sounds daft, but you'd have a pin that went in it on a cotter pin, right? And if you had one of them, it was a shit bike, you know what I mean? So if you had a cordless crank, he was made. So this lad he swapped. I didn't buy a swap, so I got this cordless crank, but the thread had gone on it, so you couldn't put a pedal in it. So, and it was a left-hand thread. It was the left, one's a left-hand, one's a right-hand thread. So my dad's a welder, so he says, take it in work and weld it for you. He said, it's not going to look smart when I've welded it. So he welded it. So I said, what are you going to screw cut it like? You know what I mean? We're going to put the pedal on. He went, got to age harden, that lad. Well, what do you mean he's got to age harden? He went, got to leave that about 4 or 5 weeks before I can put a screw cut in that. He said, it was too soft, it age hardens. So anyway, to be fair to him, he drilled it, tapped it, and it worked. And he 52 teeth, which is the biggest you can get, and I put a 13-tooth fixed wheel on the back. And you could go fast on it, really fast, but couldn't go up hills because it was that high geared. But I went down Agecroft Road going towards River Irwell, and I passed this car, and I looked at his speedo, and he was doing 45 mile an hour, and I passed him.
It's just that culture of, fixing things
make
up.
Do amend.
Yeah, make do amend.
Yeah.
Just doesn't really happen anymore. No. And it's a shame because I think you'd get more innovation and things that could benefit the industry with that more of that make and mend sort of attitude. One other thing that we spoke about this briefly yesterday, but about the impact wrench. Yeah. So I obviously am a massive staunch advocate of the impact wrench.
I tell everybody this, that I'm not saying I was the first one to use a battery impact wrench, but I don't know anybody else who had one before me. No, but it started off, we had some soldiers to fix on, Steve Epworth had one, but he used it for putting ties in, but 110 one. That's like, he had like a socket that put the ring bolts in. So, but me and Jay Garnett was on the post office, it was RMD Quickforce at the time. We were doing big gallows brackets in RMD, in soldiers, for this scaffold. So we had to go in on the Saturday and assemble them all ready for going in the wall. So we'd done one on the Friday, and I got my socket sets and my spanners 24 mil. It took us forever to do one. So, I can't be doing this. So I called to my brothers. He had a 110 one, DeWalt. So I borrowed that, a couple of sockets. So we whizzed all these together. So I can't remember whether we stripped. I think I stripped a job, but I put the 21mm socket on it. I said, right, I'll go and strip this job. It's got to come down anyway. I know it's not going to come down till Monday, but just see how it goes. It's coming down. I'm like Peter Kate. This is the future. This is the future. Do you know? He's like rabbiting it. Jesus, how long's that took to get that down? You know what I mean? It whizzed a few nuts off at the time, like you always do. So then I'm looking round for one. So I went to Costco and they had like a battery one for getting wheel nuts off the car. And I'm thinking, right, I can get that and I can get a 12-volt motorbike battery. That'll work. You know what I mean? Anyway, this guy, anyway, our Paul's mate's dad works at Cromwell Tools. And he said, I was talking to him, he said, we've got to get some Makitas in. So bought this Makita, I got a Makita one with a red battery. They weren't that strong. You used to have to, if you used it, you'd tighten the back of a double up, not like the ones now. Mrs. went mad, 300 quid it cost me. This is going back 2005, something like that, I think. She says, that's well, it's starting to getting on. She said, look, she's getting fatigued, let's save my shoulders, because it's a bad, I had cortisone in my shoulders. She says, well, have you bought Paul one? No, she said, well, from slagging me off for spending 300 quid, she's slagging me off for not buying me son one. So I had to buy him one as well.
600 quid on the early impact wrenches. Was it RoboScaff?
Yeah, we're out on Fiddler's Ferry, and they are taking the piss. Look at these two, bleeding RoboScaff, you know what I mean? And I've seen lads today, and I mentioned it, and they go, yeah, look at me now, and the old impact. But we got a Saturday morning job. It was pissing down, raining like mad on a Saturday morning, and he said, get that ducting down. There's two sides to this ducting, you can go home. So me and Paul got on one side, we went, right, there's lads stacking. There's a couple of lads behind us. Like, all you've got to do is take the gear out and stack your wheels and do all the this thing just flew down. So I think a lot of people after that went. So
you stuck with you right the way through the innovation.
You know, the ratchet, the ratchet. So a quick one on this. So Desi Lee, who you mentioned, she also mentioned, good scaffolder. He come back from Borneo, been on the rigs, and he had this fixed head ratchet, Top Dog it was called. I thought, the same again, a copy of it, everybody else. Nothing's my idea. I need one of them. So same again, this bloke at Cromwell Tools, he got us 4, the make was Lobster, remember it. Sold to him, couldn't sell one to anybody. So then found out that Super Tool did them. So I said, so sent off for a catalogue to Japan. And I got a catalogue back from Japan. Anyway, my brother was a bit clued up. He went, I said, I've got this, no internet. I said, I don't know how to buy them. So he says, I've been onto because the Japanese consulate, he said the consulate deals more in trade than political things. He says, been onto the consulate. He said, fax them what you want. Don't phone them. Send them a fax. They'll fax you back a price to air freight over what you want. And you can pay that on your card and give you an account number. And I thought, I've not sold any. There's no point. So fast forward, we're working in London. We go to Leach's, which was have you seen that, the 4 candles sketch?
Yeah.
That's what
for folks.
That's what the shop was like. He had a brown coat on. So I bought a couple of boxes. I said, don't you interested in this? So I told him the story, give him the Super Tool address. He went, I've been after this for years. Oh, that's not bad. Next thing, he sold the business to Leach's, and they're importing and making a fortune out of them.
Oh, yeah. If only.
Another lost fortune. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think he's one of those, probably an unsung hero. I know I said local legend at the start because I think you do get a lot of credit, for that type of innovation off a lot of people. But, on a lot of the stuff you just mentioned there, I didn't even know you'd had any involvement with it. A bit of a health scare.
Yeah, I had bowel cancer. So, I did the test. You send it, we call it a shit kit. So when you get to a certain age, they send you this kit and you put a bit of poo on it, post it off. And then if there's any signs of blood in it. So it come back, there's blood, but I was having the teeth done. So I had a couple of extractions. So they put it down. So they sent me 2 more test kits. Yeah, that was clear.
They thought you'd swallow blood maybe.
Yeah. So the next thing, I'm having a poo, and there's a bit of blood in it and there's a mucus on it. So goes to the doctors. She went referred within 10 days, and then you have to have the camera up. You have to drink this stuff called movie prep, which is like drinking citric wallpaper paste. It's the most horrible thing in the world, and then that just empties you back. You just, it's like, well, you shit piss.
Yeah, God.
So go in there, have the camera up. There's little marks on this thing. It's like a video game he's got. He's like this bleeding, and he can blow air in, he can blow water in, he can take a biopsy, a little pinch of it. You can see it on the camera, takes the biopsy, suck air out, and he's saying, try not to lose wind. And you're going, what, because he's blowing air. And they put a nurse there to talk to you, to calm you, like, she's it's a bit like when a woman goes to hairdressers, you're like, have you been anywhere nice? You're going on holiday. That's how she talks to you, you know what I mean? Cutting your hair. So, I've seen these things, said, well, how far's that going up? I've seen these marks and it's going up. And there's two television screens either side, so you can see what's happening. Two massive big LCD screens. You can see what you say all your inside. It says, about a metre. I went, what? Because it goes right up, back down, so they check everything. And then they find, if you get it in time, we'll come on to that, it's a polyp, it's a little growth, and they just blast it off with the water. So what he does then is it's the only tattoo I've ever had, he puts Indian ink on it and tattoos it, so that when because he couldn't get it off.
So we can find it again.
Yeah. So I'll go in again, and he said, this is more than what we thought this. So then a couple more later, I go and see the consultant, and he's like, it's weird. He turns from a nice bloke. Well, he's not saying he is a nice bloke, but he turns into the devil's bookie, because he still goes through it and he says, you have got cancer, this, and this, and here's your options. And he gives you your options of dying. So he says, you have nothing done, you're going to die. And then he gives you your percentage of chances of living. So he says, you've 5% chance of dying. And you think, fucking hell. It's like a sledgehammer hitting you, because you know. So then,
you've been confronted with your own bloody mortality.
It's right. He says, comes the devil's bookie. So he says, so anyway, they said, right, you're going to have the operation. So I was going away. They said, right, go away. Went in theatre at 7. I've never seen, they give you an epidural and they're going to put you out. So I looked to the side and I could see through, you're on a table and I could see the theatre. I've never seen so many people down the table, some bottles going then. And I think it was 9 hours in theatre, high dependence unit for 3 days. And then I'm in the house for 3 months. I've got to have an injection every day for the blood clots. And then it's weird. Your stomach stops working. It's a bit like, when you squeeze an ice pop and get the things to the end of it, that's how all your digestive system. So that's got to reform itself. So that when that starts working, the other thing is, because it's changed, you don't know what's coming out is either liquid, solid, or gas in what order. Yeah. You think you're going to fart. Oh, you're not. You're going to hit yourself. Yeah. So it's 3 months before I go out, and the first night I go out, I'm giddy. So I've put. You've got to take precautions. So I've got load of toilet roll in one pocket, spare pair of underpants in a plastic bag in another, and then you shove up I call it a mandatory towel, load of paper up your bum crack. Later on, it goes what Viz call a man pon. It's just a little piece, just in case. And put that. So we're going
mandatory towel and man pon. Fucking hell, yeah.
So then we're going Weatherspoons. I'm proper giddy. It's first night out in 3 months. I've not had a drink. Couple like the real ale. Then we go in the top house, that's gone now. But we go in there. There's a DJ on. I'm asking him for records. What I think. Go to the toilet. So go to the toilet, fart. Go to the toilet, have a shit. Backwards and forwards. Anyway, I finally pluck up. I thought I'm not going out. Finally pluck up courage to fart in the pub. The smell was Jesus. 2 women, I think one of them was sick. One of them, they ran out, emptied the pub, and this bloke shouted, "It's Novichok, get out!" And it's just, Mrs. went, "Is that you?" Of course it's me. You're only going to fart like that. Because it's not processed properly yet. It's not adjusted. I mean, like, I'm more or less, it literally takes a couple of years to get right. I mean, I'm 5 years in September, I'm clear. I've got to go for the camera.
Oh, that long?
Yes. I go for bloods every 6 months. But I didn't, I know we spoke about this, but what I didn't mention was that the support I got from Salford Royal Hospital, the surgeon, Claire Mason, and you have a support nurse as well who you can phone up. And then once I'm fit, I get a fitness plan, and I get a free pass to the gym, and I've got an instructor there who knows all about what I've had. He says, "What do you want to achieve?" Well, go back to work. He said, "Well, don't be doing sit-ups, because I've cut from my navel right down as far as it can go, more or less." It's a really good plan. And then you do a Macmillan course, which is 4 days in the hospital. So it's 8 different sessions. So the first one was about how you can manage your money. I didn't need to go, not being big-headed, but I didn't need to go to answer the manage the money thing. But there's all different things. I mean, like, it can be quite upsetting because these people, sometimes you have to have what's called a stoma, which is your poo comes out in the bag at the side. Look, I mean, they mark you up for that just in case you have it. So your bottle's going, because the marks you're there, right? That's where your stoma's going to be if you need one. Sometimes it's only temporary. I'm lucky I didn't have to have one. But when you go into these sessions, these people there have got terminal cancer. It's uplifting. It's rare.
You see them and you speak to them, and then
they're the Macmillan nurses. You know, I'm like, we went to one and like this. They'll arrange guitar courses for you. Also, it was the support was unbelievable. We go to one and they've got a load of paper there and scissors, folding paper and making flowers. I've got to take these off. It's like a kid at primary school. Look, I've made you know what I mean? All butties laid on. But the support was just from there. It was just, I couldn't fault it.
Oh, fair play to them.
Yeah.
Just as you were telling the story, and thanks for it, because I think it really is an important thing to do, for other people who may be experiencing the symptoms and making sure they get checked up.
I mean, there's other symptoms like weight loss. I didn't have any weight loss. My weight's been constant for years, within 4 to 5 pounds. Yeah. Stomach pain, lack of sleep. The only thing I had was the blood and lack of mucus on.
Right.
That's all. But
there's all stuff that you really need to.
Yeah, I mean, my granddad died of bowel cancer. And I ate loads of fruit. He's going to the airport and he said, "Bleeding hell, pal, you're opening the greengrocers there." You know what I mean? I said to the good source, I'm a bit upset about this because I've had this healthy diet for years. Because he says, "Well, I told him what I've been eating, like," and he said, "Well, if you hadn't been eating that, you'd have got this 10 years ago and it'd have probably killed you."
That's another thing is to.
But anybody who sees any of those symptoms, just go to your doctor right away. You've nothing to lose, and they'll check you out, and then you'll be referred within 10 days. But if it's caught early enough, it's dead easy. They put the camera up, which is, it hurts initially going. It's just like once it's in, it's all right. It's just when it goes in, you know what I mean? And then they just high pressure water jet it off, and that's it, done. Yeah. People who caught early, it's done and you're dusted. They'll check up on it.
So I think, like, what you said there, and I know I'm getting that glare again when I need to wrap things up. I think what that just said to me is, I think that the support that's out there is obviously clearly very, very good, especially from Salford, as you have mentioned. But I think the other thing that's definitely seen you through is your humour, because as you were telling the story, I couldn't help but laugh, and I know that was the intention, and you think should it be, but you've clearly just got a really positive attitude, high spirits. I've never heard anybody in scaffolding say a bad word about you. Everybody holds you in such high regard. So I think the network of people that you've influenced and all the rest of it, and who obviously support you, I think that'll always see you right.
The other thing is, obviously, because it's a bit like a dog passing a lamppost in the initial stages. When you pass the toilet, you just go in. I've been in somewhere. I've been in some horrendous public toilets, but you've got to go in because you think. You don't know whether you're going to make it. You don't know whether you're going to make it to the pub or not. So I say, do you need to go? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to go anyway. Yeah. That's
go for the make sure.
And that's for about a year. That it doesn't settle down right away. That's for about a year. That.
But, fair play to you, man. I think we're
we done.
Yeah, I think we're just about done.
Well, thanks very much.
Thanks for coming on. We'll knit this together because I know there's been a bit of stop and start with the cameras and the batches. Yeah. And all the rest of it, you persevered and got through it. Definitely not the end of the story. We'll definitely get you back. I think you, Ian, sit down and go through some more of the history stuff. I'm sorry, with Paul.
We've got loads of stuff like that. And it's interesting. I mean, like, I don't know, some scouts say, doing with that, but if you're interested in your job, you know what I mean?
Well, at least we can say that neither of us are wheel tappers. Is that the expression?
Yeah.
Top man. Ian, pleasure. Can't wait to have you on again, especially with Paul as well.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Right.